evening, everybody, and welcome to another exclusive interview right here on She Is Whatever She Wants to Be Women in Conversation interview series. My name is Maxine Johns. I am very excited to speak to my next guest. She goes by the name of Liza Moscatelli, and she is a lady on a mission. She is a multidisciplinary artist. Right, I think I've got it right. A multidisciplinary artist. She's
Correct.
also a community. I know I'm going to mess this up, but a community practitioner or a community and youth practitioner, and she's got social work involved in all of that. Look, she's just bad. Okay, I'm just gonna make it simple, and she is she's definitely a woman to watch. I've been watching her from the wings for a long time, and I love her work, and I'm very, very grateful that she's on the show tonight. Welcome to the show, Liza.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And you got that pretty well. Like, it's a bit of a tongue twister. And, you know, we women wear many hats. So even when people ask me what I do, I'm like, okay, how much time do you have?
Let's break each and every title down, because
the syllables.
That's it. But each and every title wears weight, right? And it wears it wears individual weight for whatever it is that you're bringing to the role. So we look at the first thing. Now, you are very, very well respected, especially within the hip hop community here in Sydney, for your incredible works that you and obviously, you know, projects that you've been creating for some time now. You've always championed for the female hip hop artist, or you know, woman in hip hop, to sort of just, you know, keep it short. But it obviously goes a lot deeper than that for you. So maybe let's just begin with obviously your love of hip hop and how you got started on your artistic journey. Let's start with that one first.
How much time do you have? Yeah. Yeah, hip hop, it's really interesting. I grew up listening to, before hip hop was, you know, whatever my parents would listen to. So around the house, my mum would have like UB40, and because she comes from the Philippines and in Cebu, and Cebu is quite really into reggae and you know, island kind of music as well. So there's a whole reggae community. Yeah, UB40, all those ballads and classics and, you know, love songs, because we love to put on a karaoke every now and then. So I grew up with all that and Filipino songs, but I used to sometimes just sing it but not even know what they were saying because I don't speak the language. And my dad, he comes from a different generation and whole different continent. So my father's Italian, grew up in Egypt, lived in Brazil for 10 years before he came to Australia. Yeah.
I never knew that was your cultural makeup.
Really? What did you think?
I actually thought that you had sort of like maybe South Pacific Islander in you somewhere. And then
I get that a lot.
Yeah, and then like Moscatelli, obviously I knew there was European or, you know, like the Mediterranean side, but I would never have imagined Filipino and Italian. What an amazing mixture.
Thank you. Yeah, I get that a lot. But I did one of those DNA tests one time, and apparently I have like 3% Pacific Islander in me. So I don't know.
That 3% is right out there.
So there you go. That's probably why. And I guess historically they were used to trade like between islands, and so maybe down the line that's what happened. But yeah, my father used to listen, he still does, like Italian love songs, Frank Sinatra, and even just like Engelbert Humperdinck. It's hard to say, but
my mother loving him.
Yeah. And what's it, Edith Piaf and all that. So we grew up on a lot of multilingual and, you know, culture, various music, and he used to love singing karaoke too. So and he's quite musically, you know, inclined. So I used to play the accordion, Italian kind of love songs and all that. And eventually in year 6, there was this boy that used to play Tupac a lot in year 6, and he drew this awesome portrait of Tupac, and I was like, who is that? Like, and for people my age, you know, in the 90s, listening to like Frank Sinatra and all that, it wasn't common, like and Elvis and all that. People my age used to listen to like Tupac and all the pop stuff at that time. And so I was like, who is this? And he started showing me all this Tupac music, and I was like, wow, like, and then listening to the lyrics and growing up in Western Sydney, and I felt like there was this kind of connection to the music, you know, like I wouldn't say we were super poor, but we grew up in a low socioeconomic area. We didn't have a lot. So they were talking a lot about, you know, poverty and trying to get out of that. And, you know, just, yeah, there was some kind of connection there, and just like some of the struggles. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I really connected with hip hop, you know. And it was mostly male hip hop artists. Eventually got into the Bone Thugs and Harmony, and you know, growing up in Western Sydney, you kind of get, I guess, a bit sidetracked sometimes. So whether you think you're going to finish school or not, or there's a lot of challenges, which, you know, and we kind of just push through it. But then the kind of music that you listen to as well, like, you know, and the environment you grow up in, you absorb that. But I just felt so connected to hip hop, and then started getting into photography later down the track. I think year 11, I mean, I've always had those point and shoot cameras, you know, like taking photos at family events, and I just love documenting everything. So I've always had family saying, oh, take pictures of us, or take pictures at so-and-so's birthdays. This is primary school. And then Westfield in Mount Druitt used to be called Market Town Mount Druitt, and they used to bring in like celebrities and after school would rush over to the shopping centre and try and push through the crowd. I will ask my mum, can I borrow your camera, you know, with the film? Billy, from the one that used to sing, you know, Billy, the British artist, she was there.
Her. Like, she's an awesome actress right now too. She's done
what is she?
Right. She's a really, really good actress as well.
Is it really?
Billy we're thinking about, short little blonde singer?
I'm almost not sure she was blonde.
Or she's Billy, like, but she was kind of little. I'm sure. I hope we're thinking about the same person. And she
was big at the time because I was little.
It's the same person. No, because I remembered her being quite popular out here at the time. And now she's a pretty. She does really well. Yeah, she's a really good actress as well. I've watched a couple.
I'll have to check that out.
The transition from her singing to acting has been really good.
Yeah, so she was there and managed to meet her. They had meet and greets, and then there was Mandy Moore as well. I don't know if you remember Mandy Moore.
She's a good actress too.
I actually saw her in a movie. Yeah,
she's a great actress. So there we go.
Yeah, so they had a few celebrities, and then I was like, there was a rush. Like, I don't know, to see a celebrity in Mount Druitt was like really like what, you know. How? But they had them there, so we'd push through, and then that was year 5, year 6, or I think even until year 9, and then eventually after year 11 and 12, I decided, I really want to study photography. I wasn't interested in like science or anything, so I learned how to shoot in film, and, you know, even develop our own film, and, you know, and all that kind of stuff. And I was so intrigued by the process of photography. And then we had to restore our family photos as well. So my dad had old photos from Egypt, like with tears through it, and restoring photos. And I loved it. My dad and my family were like, wow, this is amazing. Like, how did you do that? You know? So I got a thrill. And then from there, after school, I mean, my mum was like, what are you going to do? You can't do photography. Like, you're not going to make money from that. Like, you need to think of a career, you know. And I didn't put you through this school to, you know, I worked my butt off to, you know, give you a good education. So I don't want you to do nothing. So I was like, oh my gosh. So I just took up any jobs here and there. And then I volunteered for, what was it? What's it called? It was a new publication at the time, the AU Review.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, and they were just starting. And do you remember those like drum
Media?
Yeah, Drum Media, Street Press.
Yes.
And it was at Journal Pants, and I'd pick one up because I loved looking at all the new music and all that. And at the back, it said they were looking for contributors, you know, writers, reviewers, and and photographers. And I saved up not so much money, but money to buy my first camera. Didn't remember how to really use it because there was a few years between school and when I finally got my camera. But they gave me my first gig, and I think it was either Draft, hip hop artist Draft, and not Metro Theatre, Gaelic Theatre in Sydney. I think that closed now.
It is closed, unfortunately. Like so
well before. Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh. And they published my photos in the book, and I don't know, I did it as a way to I was very shy in school. So I was like, I'm not a performer. My family, my dad, my mom, my sister, they all like singing, dancing. They're very out there. And I was really just quiet and embarrassed. And I was like, no, I'll just document. And I ended up, just putting myself out there. I was like, I need to do this more to practice photography, but also to just meet people and get comfortable doing things on my own and overcome that shyness, because it was stopping me from pursuing any opportunities that came. I would say no because I was just too scared. You know,
and especially within the music industry as well, because it's such an interesting community to be a part of. So I totally understand that aspect of it. Now, what year was that you started your journey with?
Around 2010, 2011 with the AU Review. And then later down the track, I realized it was really competitive to try and get certain passes or access to things. And I was like, oh man. And some of the artists I wasn't connected to, like there wasn't much hip hop. So I created my own, like Mosca Media. It was one night, I think 2011, and I was studying social work at the time. And every time I would do an assignment for social work, or I was really studying to be a social worker eventually. Which I got into because of volunteering before. Back in the day at church, I said I want to help people, going through like similar struggle, in Western Sydney. But my mind was always also towards photography. So I started my Mosca Media, and I started, approaching bands, artists, even publicists, and any industry people saying, hey, I started this thing. I don't know what it is. It's a blog, I guess. It will evolve eventually, but I like capturing, documenting events and portraits. So now I want to get better. So if you'd like me to come, and I just do everything for free because I just needed to practice. And you can see it in my work over the years, like it's gotten better and better. And that's what happened. And then I started getting better, and then getting approached, by everywhere, like people, artists, bands, anything. And before it used to be like, in a lot of local and international artists that I connected to at the time. But then as I grew as a person and developed, my values changed, and so did the artists that I listened to. Like I became more, I guess, socially conscious about
you absolutely
things.
do. You become so much more aware as you delve deeper into it, and the hobby becomes the actual reality of what your existence is in this thing called hip hop. So you do become a lot more switched on to it.
Exactly. And that's how I felt. Like I said, oh, my taste has changed. Like, so now I listen to other, artists that where my values kind of align with theirs, and conscious hip hop and things like that. So, and then I met, people like El Fresh and, MC Trey eventually, and all those people, Maya Jupiter, and and that's it. And I feel like it's just, as I'm growing, my work is growing and my purpose is becoming very clear, like, because I'm learning about myself and my identity. And then now I feel like, wow, like I can't not do it anymore. It's like part of me. It's so weird.
It starts to define you. It's so wonderful to hear how you started.
Thank you.
Out. It's almost very similar to my start point. And I started my writing career in street press with 3D magazine, which was also aligned with 3D. I mean, with Drum Media. But I started back in 99, 2000, so 10 years prior, where the hip hop industry was literally a crawl. Like, we were building the blocks to what it is that we have today. So when I hear your story and I see how your blocks have been pieced together to bring you to this point, it is you become your purpose. And I think the more you try to sort of keep it as a side hustle, because that was what was done. It was always 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Hip hop was the side hustle because it never paid enough to secure a deposit on a house or anything, but it was the thing you really loved doing, and this is way back in the early 2000s. And so there was always a lot of us that were moonlighting doing the office job, and then the 1 foot in the hip hop, the cape comes on at night. So but I think for the younger sort of people today, I think it's important to talk about these building blocks for how we all started our careers, because I think a lot of the time they just think there was an industry here, like in the US or in the UK, and it wasn't. It's still being built. And a lot of us, there wasn't even one when we first started. So it's really interesting to hear your...
that's why I feel very honored to talk to you too, because you, MC Trey, Maya Jupiter, like all you women, help kind of pave the way for, upcoming or the next generation in hip hop. Artists, photographers, like, and I didn't realize there was an industry till later down the track, like, absolutely.
But I think what you're doing, Liza, is so necessary and it's so important. And I was so touched by the recent project that you put together, which was honoring the very women you've spoken about, these incredible artists. And when I say honoring, I'm talking about the likes of Maya Jupiter, the likes of, MC Trey. I'm not sure if I'm going to correct me if I'm wrong. Mira was involved in it, if I'm correct. Maybe I'm
she was at the event where I interviewed them, but she was on a flight, so she missed out. Yeah.
Gotcha. I mean, all of these women whose names you mentioned, they have literally been the trailblazers for so many, both men and women in this country, when we're talking about the hip hop community. And can we talk a little bit about that project? You obviously did it it was in Campbelltown. Am I correct? Was it at
the film screening was at Fairfield City Museum and Gallery earlier this year for Travelling Sounds Music and Migration exhibition. And that was actually, I think it launched, like, it was on exhibition from December the 5th last year, and then until about, was it June? They extended it till June, I think, this year. And then the screening was on International Women's Day in March this year, which was amazing. Like, it sold out, and I was just so surprised to have so many. It was just a beautiful, environment, like, to see, amazing women there on the panel, and then sitting in the crowd, in the audience. And it was such a rainy day, like, I think it was flooding, and people still ended up coming, and people trying to get tickets, but they couldn't, because we didn't expect that many people, you know, the weather and who knows who would turn up, but people were like, oh damn, I missed out, you know. So then there was talk about doing things like interstate as well and screening everywhere. But that project was put together by Maya Jupiter. Well, not the film, but the event. So there was a event called Arta Vista about, you know, artists and activists or women who are using their art, music and hip hop and to create social change. So the show was curated by Queen G and Maya Jupiter, and then they had like Mira, they had obviously themselves, so Queen G, Maya Jupiter, they had Genoa Gila. She's from Hot Brown Honeys, and she's a dancer and, you know, a poet and amazing woman. There was also Zia Dalla, who's also an amazing rapper and a community development person. There was quite a few women, and I just grabbed as many people as I could before the show started. But I realized there was also a media outlet which you know, were interviewing the women beforehand, so I wasn't sure how much time we had, but we managed to squeeze in a good 5 interviews, I think. There was DJ Josie Styles as well.
Yes.
So yeah, it was just amazing. And then I said to Queen G, like, she hired me to be the photo documenter, so the photographer for the event. She said, oh, it's going to be amazing. That she said, all these women are going to be here for the first time together, you know, in 10 years. Or she said, this has never been done before. And there's like 2 generations of women in hip hop. And I said, wait a minute, this is actually a historical event. Like, can I actually interview you instead? Like, I'll take photos, but can we document this, you know? So I think the 2 nights or the night before the event, I just thought of questions to ask. I had my friend help me with that, the interviews, and I did the filming. And it was, you know, things, you saw the documentary, and they never even, like, we one by one pulled, you know, we pulled Queen G to ask this set of questions, and then she left, and then, you know, we had Maya Jupiter, and then they never saw or heard what they had said. Like, basically they never heard each other's interviews until this year, you know, and the messages were aligned. As I was editing, I said, oh wow, like, their messages were so aligned, and then I just pieced it together, almost like a video essay. And then for the first time, they got to watch it, or late last year, as soon as it went on exhibition. And then we were like, whoa, you know. So yeah, if I see an opportunity to document, like, sometimes people don't realize that things are worth documenting, or there's no budget or whatever.
That is
so true. I didn't even have a budget. We didn't have a budget for it, and I kind of put it on the back burner for a bit because I had to prioritize work and stuff, pay my bills. But I always knew I need to finish this. And then Fairfield Gallery approached me and said, we heard about your work, and we think your research on migration as well as your hip hop stuff, we don't know what you do, but come and have a chat. We'd like you to produce some artworks or photography or whatever it is you want for this exhibition, because there's those intersecting kind of roles that I do, like, you know, the academic research on migration and then hip hop, and they're like, whatever it is you're doing, you know, I think it will fit with our theme. And it was perfect. And I said, choose Western Sydney artists to photograph, and then take their photos, and we'll display it, we'll exhibit it. But I was always keen on the storytelling part of things as well. So I said, oh, actually, can I take their photos, but actually get them to write a piece about themselves? So their own bio, but also what identity means to them. They can focus on any aspect of identity, whether it's race, ethnicity, their gender, sexuality, whatever. And they have autonomy on what they share, but also where we take the photo. So it could be a place that they connect to.
Yeah.
So that's what happened. And I had only a couple of months to, you know, organize it, shoot it, edit it. And then they said, oh, and I said, I don't know if you're interested, but I'm making this film. It's not finished, but it's about activism, you know, hip hop and women in hip hop and women empowerment. And they're like, oh, let's watch it. And they said, oh, this is great. How about we pay you to finish it? So I said, okay. Wow. And then you can exhibit it. And so that was the two major works for the history of music. Yeah. Seriously. And it was amazing.
It you know what, just to see, you know, works like that being created, being put out there, you know, shared with not only the community but the rest of the world. You know, I mean, there's always been so much talk about, you know, documentaries about our hip hop community, and I think there was a few kind of made back when I was, you know, really actively writing for, you know, for 3D and obviously all the other magazines that were out at the time. And I left Australia for a little while after I met my husband and moved overseas. And, you know, obviously things changed from the street press to then digital. You know, everything went online. It was blogs and it was all about the online marketing. And there was a part of the hip hop, sort of the authenticity of our documentation had sort of died along with the street press sort of, you know, publications, because people used to love picking those up and, you know, having a look at the photos. And, you know, there was so many, you know, startup writers that, again, when you say the contributors, you know, it's like you're looking for contributors to the magazine, whether it was photography or, you know, artists and marketing. That was such a huge part of our community. So, you know, once everything went digital, obviously you have to go with the times, and it's, you know, technology reigns supreme, and the hip hop industry had to become a part of that vehicle, to see where it is now, and to know that there are incredible women behind the lens of a lot of what's been documented. It's not, you know, casting aside our brothers or anything like that, but there's just, women look at hip hop very differently. And I think when you're not an artist in it, especially, like a behind the scenes, whether you're a writer or an author or a DJ or a radio person or a photographer, we look at it and we just screen it very differently to the male eye. I totally believe we do. Yeah. How has been behind the lens for you, obviously, as you're growing and bettering your craft? What is it about capturing hip hop that inspires you to continue being a photographer? Like, what is it about? And it's not just the struggle. It's not, obviously, you've spoken about, you know, what the music was like for you, but the imagery. What is it about hip hop that has you clicking that shutter?
That's a good question. For me, there's something about the energy, whether it's at a show or in a recording studio, and just being that person, like a fly on the wall. Like, I love to learn through observation, because I've been like that throughout school as well, and at uni I observe before I speak, you know. So it was just capturing and becoming friends with artists, mostly male, because, you know, hip hop is very male dominated kind of culture and industry. And, you know, and also I felt like sometimes I didn't get along with females, because I connected more with males, because they just didn't judge and they accepted me for just me.
Yep.
And so I was like, oh, okay, so yeah, I can hang out with you, but unfortunately they think you're interested all the time, like in a romantic way.
Seriously, it's like, dude, I'm just trying to do my job. You're cool, but you ain't that cute.
You're my brother. Yeah, but it was quite fascinating because everyone has their own story, and as I'm trying to unfold my own story as well, like I felt like it was like my visual diary, or like a diary for me, like in all the spaces that I'm in, you know. And hip hop for me was like one of those environments that I was in because I connected with the music. But then I got to know local artists, even where I used to live in St. Mary's. There was a recording studio there. And we had like Bone Thugs come in one day, who I used to listen to. And I'm like, this is tripping me out. Like, you know, Crazy Bone, just, hey, what's up? And I was like, oh my God, like
the degrees of separation. That
you're in St. Mary's.
It's just like, yeah, but I mean, look, when these artists come out here, they want to go to the real. They want to see where, you know, the working part of, you know, Sydney is, and because that's what they come from and that's what they represent. So, but I hear you, like you walk into a radio station at Burwood, you're like, why is Fat Man Scoop in here? What's going on?
Yeah.
Door buzzer's like broken and he sort of sign in at the door. Like it's just mind blowing.
Yeah, it's not like what you see on the TV or on YouTube or whatever, like they're in their fancy studios and then they come to one in St. Mary's that was still under construction. Like there was like nails hanging out and wood frames, like just hazard everywhere. But they came in and they didn't judge, and they were like, obviously a lot of the community members there connected with their music too, so it was a packed house, you know. And I loved that because I lived in St. Mary's, that in Western Sydney, and there was my community there, and I saw, you know, my friends there, and then we all connected. And for me, it's like just being there and documenting, because I feel like without capturing the excitement and the energy, it dies. Like it dies with you, and the stories die with you too. So it's photos with captions and written pieces that I kind of put together. And I think because I think about I grew up with storytellers. Like my grandma used to tell us stories about her childhood in Egypt, and same with my dad and my mom in the Philippines. And I'm like, wow. And I'm like, everyone is a walking narrative. Like Absolutely. You are, I am, you know, any person you see is a narrative just walking about. And then what happens when they die? Like, and they never shared their story, like we don't know. And I think about Indigenous kind of like how important it is for you know, to learn about Australian or Indigenous cultures all over the world, but especially in Australia. And their history was not documented like in written form, like it was all oral, you know. And so, and that's why, and I work with, you know, Indigenous communities too. And like I did a film, like documenting one of the local elders in Western Sydney. And he said, I'm telling these stories because once I die, then, and if you kids don't, you know, pass it on, like that's it. It's forgotten. So for me, hip hop is part of, it's not just a genre, it's like, it's a culture. There's story. Everyone's telling their stories in their music, you know. Some of them are poets as well, and it's all the same, but just you add the beat, you know. And there's so much substance in people's stories. Like if you really listen to the lyrics, you're like, wow, like you can either connect with them. You know, there's importance to share stories, because if you don't, like, who knows who you save, like Absolutely. Whose ears land on your lyrics, and you have no idea. So don't underestimate the power of sharing your story, you know. And I want to be that person that kind of records those things, like, and somehow, you know, if there's a platform or maybe I was talking to Trey, and we'll talk about even what do you call those archives? Anyway, there's places where they keep archives, records. Absolutely. So museums and things like that. I'm like, if I die, so I've even prepared, like I'm preparing everything, like a list of things, you know, hard drives. And I said to my sister, you're going to keep my hard drives and you're going to make sure it's going to go somewhere, you know.
I
That's if
love
I
that.
go before you.
I love that, Liza, and I think that's something that really resonates deeply with me. You know, being a writer as well. You know, I just hearing you speak about how, you know, powerful the role that you've taken on being somebody who's choosing to document these moments, not just in time for yourself, but for future generations. And I think that's the gift that we've been given. And I think it would be an absolute tragedy and a travesty if we didn't respond to its call.
Yeah.
I just again I think, you know, looking at what other nations have done, where, you know, documenting their hip hop you know, stories have been. I mean, you know, you look at the UK and they've got such an incredible history with their own you know, hip hop industry, and then of course for the US, you know, they started it all, and you know, you even look further back into it, and you know, back into like, you know, the 70s and the 60s with, you know, the rock and roll and the jazz era, and just this was always, hip hop's always linked back to the ancestral roots of you know, of music in general. So there's always a throwback to history, and I think at this point with everything that you're doing, this is the throwback. So for the future generations, it's going to be watching, you know, your documentaries, looking at your images with the narrative, and you know, reading the books about, you know, hip hop in Sydney, where people didn't think it was important to write a book about hip hop in Sydney, and me writing a book about it is to pay not only homage to the community at the time, but to the future, and my children and their kids can go, this is kind of how it started. Like, this is great, and these were the people who were key people in that moment, and it's just history, and record keeping is fascinating. It's a fascinating thing.
I feel you. Yeah.
It's a fascinating thing. So to have images with it is even better, right? And
Yeah, there's so much power.
So much power. Seriously, incredible power. So congratulations on just the little bit that you've told me about. It's just so damn inspiring. Like, it's so brilliant to finally talk to you about, you know, not only what you've done, but really excited about what you're going to do, you know, next. So obviously we're in lockdown. We're seeing the end of the tunnel, God willing, and it's really affected our entertainment industry. Like, really, it's just affected it a lot. But I think for a lot of us, it's also given us time to hone in our craft. So how have you spent lockdown? How's it been for you, and what are you looking to achieve once life gets to the new normal?
Yeah, that's good. I think it's like just really trying. I'm a little bit scared of going out of lockdown, to be honest,
Same.
but because you get so accustomed to, you've already built your routine in lockdown, you know. So, but lockdown for me was initially quite. Oh, I think I was okay in the beginning because I thought we all probably thought it wasn't going to be extended and extended and extended. But then later I'm like, okay, I miss my family. I miss my friends. You know, I live by myself. I ended up getting a puppy as well to keep me company, chewing up everything. But, you know, then later, once you pass that stage of like, you know, being uncomfortable and lonely and stuff, then you're like, okay, I'm tired now, tired of this. I'm going to get back into things that I want to do. So for me, I've always like been into like drawing and illustration. So I started, you know, drawing by hand, but also on the iPad. I ended up getting this iPad and haven't used it much, you know, Procreate. So I'm like, oh, I may as well start to draw. So I started drawing like artists, portraits. I'm doing one now, Sampa the Great. So her portrait with she's amazing. And then adding my calligraphy style, you know, I don't know if I'm going to put their lyrics behind them or whatever. I did Big Pun in the middle of Big Pun. And I did a self-portrait. I'm like, oh, I don't really have any drawings of myself, so I'm going to try and
You may
draw
as well
myself.
document yourself. You're documenting everybody else. You better put yourself in there.
Yeah. So it's been fun. So I've got a few unfinished drawings, and just experimenting as well. So yeah, just whatever comes up in my mind, I'll draw it by hand, and then I'll draw it in Procreate on the iPad. And I'm like, wow, like imagine, like your imagination is amazing. Like, you know, it's just a random illustration. Like I did an alien, and I don't know, just random things.
That's awesome. But having the time to do it has been the gift, right? And I sometimes think it's like I likened the first lockdown to like a communal grounding, right? The whole world is grounded. We've done enough damage to the earth, so Mother Nature and God are like, right, you need to go home for a while and let us regroup. And I looked at this time like we didn't learn from last year, so we really had to. We were literally homebound. We were bad people. We had to stay at home and regroup and maybe redesign a life a little bit differently for ourselves. So the creative stuff, and especially for us creatives, I think it has been a bit of a blessing in disguise without all of the ugliness that's been going on around the narrative of media and everything. And of course, you know, to the people who are really just, you know, people have lost their jobs, and just the mental health situation is no joke. When I say the word blessing, I say it in the lightest form for people who have been okay to be at home, being able to work and just complaining about not getting their hair done and all that kind of nonsense. The blessing has been in having quiet time to reflect. And I haven't taken that for granted at all. So to hear you find this other incredible talent of yours and hone in on that craft, now that's another gift that you might share, you know?
Yeah, and just slowing down. I think when you say blessing, it's like we're so used to the fast, the rat race, and just busy and driving everywhere, and just there's constant, you can see everyone's stressed, and I think this has really taught me personally just to slow down. And in the beginning it was hard to even do that. It's like, wait, how do I slow down? How do I relax, you know, because I'm just so used to doing. And we weren't actually, I feel like when you think about it, like since industrialization and, you know, capitalism and all that, like we're chasing the things, like the material things and things that don't really matter. Yes, you need a house and all that, but we don't need everything. I look at my room. I mean, I've been decluttering, but I'm like, I actually don't need half this crap. Like I need a roof over my head, food, and maybe my cameras, and, you know, to get my jobs done, but and whatever, like the basics. But why do we and, you know, that's all to do like with the programming that we are born into, you know, and then we just don't question it.
But you know what, I don't think a lot of people have gotten that message though, because you said, you know, you've obviously said that, and I definitely, like, you know, being a mum of two and you know, running all these different arms of my own business, then plus teaching, you know, for half of my working week, and then I've just started, you know, as a mature age student, gone back to uni to do a degree. I don't know why I've decided to add that to my already full life. But anyway, Maxine will find ways to cram.
What are you studying?
Cram. I'm doing teaching, so I'm getting my official teaching degree. So I've been bitten by the educator's bug, and I think, you know, with it's the next chapter of life, and I've always been, I mean, we're always students of life, and I just think teaching, especially
lifelong learning,
absolutely. And you know, hip hop's been a huge deciding driver in that, because hip hop's taught me a lot, and I'm now able to teach through, you know, using hip hop as a tool, which I never thought I'd ever see or do in this country. So yeah, I think it's the next opportunity.
That's amazing.
But yeah, I'm really excited. I mean, I'm 5 weeks in on this degree, and oh my days, it's
it'll go quick.
It's organization.
Yeah. You'll
right?
learn a lot apart from, you'll learn a lot apart from the content. I think it's, all that stuff
Yep. I
underlying,
already am. It's crazy. I've always been an organized person, but it's now micro finite.
next level.
I've got children, and then I'm organizing my husband as well. And how do we work this out? But I'm studying tonight, so you're gonna have to, I don't know, put some noodles on. I don't tell you, like, I ain't got time for it. So it's all of that stuff. But it's fun and it's just life, But it's just, hearing you say that about, just slowing down. It has been so important to just sit and be still, I think, this time, and watching the world and just watching how some people just don't listen to themselves or take heed of just being still. And I'm like you, I'm real nervous to get back out there again, because I've literally acclimatized to this life now, and I don't know how I'm going to be in traffic, and
we'll have to readapt. Even me, I'm like, oh no, do I even know how to drive? Like, I went in my car for the first time just to get tested, and I was like, whoa, like how do you drive again? But I think just being still, it really taught me to be still, but also reevaluate and make sure that I'm on track with my purpose. Like, everything I'm doing is not just to stay busy, or if it doesn't align with what my values or my path, then maybe it's time to get rid of things or move on to something else. Or
Absolutely.
So I think we needed that time, or I needed that time to reflect and make sure that I'm on the right path.
Absolutely. You got to check in with self, because we don't have time to waste, but time is such an important commodity to what it is that we all do. So you've got to spend it wisely, and I really agree with you on that. So I guess to wrap it up, what can we look forward to from Mosca Media moving forward? What are you working on? What can you share with us that you've been working on creatively that you're going to maybe release to the public? Is there anything in the works?
Yeah, I was thinking to do something a bit more extensive, like a bit more in depth, because in terms of a documentary with more women. I saw that you released a book too, so congratulations on that, with some amazing women. Amazing women there, and I want to actually read it, because I was reading your post and also their women's posts about that opportunity for them to share. So, and I watched some of your talks as well, and I want to do something similar, but as a documentary form with women in hip hop. So continuing the conversation, because I was talking with Queen G. I said I feel like that was like the stepping stone, like the first step. And I feel like this is going to launch into something else. Maybe it's going to be more specific about a certain topic, or maybe we can delve into the intersectional experiences of women in hip hop, because there's women, but there are so many identities that come with being a woman. And it's so diverse and nuanced, So I think capturing that as well, because I think at the moment with media coverage, and it's all about, producing content as quick as you can, but it's not very thorough or in-depth or really, getting to the root of,
it's not
intentional.
It's more, it's like fast fashion, it's just here for the quick hit and then, on to the next. And people who have longevity in this game, and and I don't say game to put any kind of lightness onto it, but it really, you've got to know how to play it. And a lot of the people who have survived with their longevity have played it extremely well. And it hasn't been easy. So that is definitely in-depth talks and you can definitely delve so much deeper into it. So that's
definitely. And just going through hard drives, I've got lots of hard drives. Some of them have crashed. I've tried to recover photos from when I first started in 2009 or 10. but some that I was able to salvage, I was like, okay, I think I can piece together a book, you know, like, so pictures, even if it's not the best quality, it shows my journey, but also the people I've met along the way, whether they were celebrities or local artists or just everyday. There's behind the scenes footage, photos in the studio, just random moments, but try and piece it together so it flows well. So that's something in the works as well. That's going to be a couple of years, a project.
Listen, as long as you've got the projection there and the planning, you know,
the vision,
there's always going to be something to document. So I'm really excited for you, Liza. I really am, and it's been so inspirational talking to you, and to, you know, finally have a conversation with you and just, you know, see what kind of makes you tick. It's been a real treat. So thank you for your time tonight.
Oh, thank you so much for having me as well. It's been fun. It's been really nice to be able to share and even think about, like, it kind of reminds me about why I'm doing what I'm doing. And, you know, I think it's so important to, like, I feel like we kind of are similar, like, you know, amplify women's voices and the whole women empowerment thing. I think we have to keep doing that, especially in this world and even in hip hop and in the spaces that we're given. It's a privilege, you know.
Oh, such a privilege. Oh my God, it is such an honor.
And an honor.
Oh my God, 100%. And it's one that, you know, I look back on I've been in this for 25 years, and I look back on the day that I started. I would never have imagined I would, you know, 25 years later, still be, you know, kind of juggling all the different sort of hats that I wear within this industry. But to, I think writing and capturing people's stories, it's such a vulnerable, it's a real vulnerable thing to do. But when they trust you with their story, there is nothing that is more honorable than to be entrusted with someone's story and to share it with the world. So that's where I'm at the moment, and it sounds very similar to, with, you know, your images and documenting everything and putting it into film. That's a whole other level, right? That's a whole other trust journey. But I think we're doing all right. I think we're doing
we're doing an amazing job.
You know?
You wear many hats, I wear many hats, and I feel like the labels don't even, like, it's, you know, as I was saying, it's really hard to describe what I do, but we just do ourselves, you know, like, we're just being ourselves. And I'm trying to live a really authentic life.
Speak on it, sweetheart. Authenticity all the way. There's no room for anything else, and I think that's we do everything with pure intention, and you can't really go wrong. So I'm very excited for you, and I can't wait to see what you do next. So
thank you. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
It's been so good.
Thank you. Thanks for being here, and take it easy. Hopefully we'll be able to see each other soon and have a proper chat and without the Zoom.
Have a cuppa.
Exactly right. You take it easy, and we'll
you too. Thank you, Maxine.
Thanks, Liza.